What if the eyes that have been watching us for millennia weren't human? What if, at some forgotten point in time, crystal-clear consciousnesses had been left on Earth, not as objects, but as messages encoded in light? There are legends that say that crystal skulls were not created. They were remembered, sculpted not by hands but by vibrations, fragments of a past that resists oblivion, silent witnesses of ages in which man and the cosmos were still. They spoke the same language. In the lost temples of Central America, among mossy ruins and silence, there are reports of priests who kept skulls of pure quartz, polished until they reflected the heaven itself. They were treated as living beings, counselors of wisdom, recipients of universal memories. Some said that when exposed to sunlight they made subtle sounds, as if they were breathing. Others swore they saw images projected inside, as if tell stories that time tried to erase. These stories have crossed centuries, oceans, and civilizations. They were called myths, legends, superstitions, but the mystery never disappeared. It just changed shape. Today, in the hands of scientists, engineers, and spiritual seekers, crystal skulls, they continue to defy logic and invite silence. There is something about them that doesn't just belong to the past. When we look at one of these skulls, the feeling is strange, almost intimate, as if something inside us is responding. An echo, a recognition. Is it possible that what we call a mystery is just the memory of something that did we ever know? The crystal is matter and spirit at the same time. It is solid like stone and transparent like the thought. Inside it, the light is not lost. It multiplies. And maybe that's why that so many cultures have considered it sacred, because it reflects the soul, not the form. Ancient people believed that crystals stored energy and consciousness. The Mayans, they spoke of 13 skulls that, put together, would tell the story of humanity before the oblivion. Each one would represent a frequency, a code, a memory ancestor. When united, they would open a portal, not physical but vibrational, capable of remind Earth of who she really is. It looks like fantasy, and maybe it is. But the oldest fantasies are often the truth told in a way that fear still accepts hearing. Because what really bothers these skulls isn't their uncertain origin. It's what they awaken. An inner call, almost forgotten, to remember that life is not just biology but also light memory. If you feel like certain things are no coincidence, maybe this video is what you needed to hear. Perhaps the crystal skulls are not enigmas to be deciphered, but mirrors of what we still can't understand it. When you look at a crystal, it doesn't give you back your image. It gives you back your vibration. He shows who you are when the world is silent. And maybe that's the secret that goes through the ages. The memory that consciousness does not end in the flesh, but pulsates in everything that vibrates. Today, let's dive into this mystery together. Between science and spirituality, between archaeology and myth, we will explore the stories, the tests, and hypotheses surrounding these enigmatic skulls. What are they anyway? Ancient art, spiritual symbol, or something that challenges our understanding of reality? Take a deep breath, because what's coming could change the way you see history, and perhaps the way you see yourself. It all started with a discovery that seemed like something out of a dream, or a warning. In 1924, in the jungles of Belize, a young woman named Anna Mitchell Hedges accompanied his father, a British explorer, on an expedition to the Mayan ruins of Lubantun. During the excavations, something shone beneath the rubble, reflecting the sun like a star fragment. When the object was removed, the group was silent. In front of them, a human skull carved from transparent quartz crystal, perfect in every detail. No cuts, no seams, no visible flaws. The artifact was called the Mitchell Hedges skull, and its fame spanned the century. Like a whisper, impossible to silence. Researchers who examined it declared that the object had been carved against the natural axis of the crystal, something that even modern machinery avoids it as quartz fragments easily. And yet, there it was, whole, polished, luminous. Since then, other skulls have been found. In Mexico, Guatemala, in museums and private collections. Some simple, others intricate with movable jaws and surprising anatomical proportions. Each surrounded by different stories but always shrouded in the same enigma. Who made them? When and why? The Mayan and Aztec people spoke of these skulls long before their rediscovery. They were said to be the guardians of time, symbols of connection between worlds, used in rituals to access ancestral wisdom. For them, the skull does not represent there was death, but rebirth and continuity of the soul. The crystal, in turn, was the matter of purity, of memory and light. Thus, uniting both was creating a mirror of consciousness, a portal between the human and the divine. But science, as always, demanded proof. In the 20th century, Hewlett-Packard Laboratories carried out analyses on quartz from skulls most famous. The result was intriguing. The crystal did not contain modern impurities, and its cutting seemed to have been done without metal tools, something impossible for known civilizations of Mesoamerica. The microscope found no chisel marks, just circular abrasion patterns, as if the surface had been shaped by vibration, not cutting. The mystery deepened. Some archaeologists argued that the skulls were 19th-century European forgeries, created for the antiquities trade. But this hypothesis weakens in the face of chemical analyses that show genuine aging and absence of industrial polishing residues. Furthermore, there are records of very prior to the Victorian era, kept in temples and sacred collections in the Americas. What intrigues is not just the technique, but the psychological and energetic effect reported by who approaches them. People describe feelings of mind expansion, vivid dreams, synchronicities, and even intuitive responses when meditating in front of the crystal. They would be projections of the human mind, or do skulls really emanate some kind of frequency? Among mystics, it is said that each skull is like an antenna of consciousness, a vibrational, information condenser capable of storing memories of civilization's old ones. More cautious scientists recognize that quartz is piezoelectric, that is, reacts to pressure by emitting subtle electrical impulses. It's the same principle used in watches, radios, and computers. If the crystal can store digital data, why not memory's energy? There are those who say that the skulls were not found by chance, but awakened when humanity has reached a certain frequency of consciousness, that they always appear in moments of planetary transition, as if responding to a collective call. Stories like this mix myth and science, faith and physics, but perhaps the real enigma lies exactly at this point of intersection, where the rational and the invisible touch. Crystal skulls challenge both the archaeologist and the mystic, the engineer and the seeker, and while each side tries to prove its version, the crystal's silence remains untouched. If there's anything these skulls teach us, it's that the mystery doesn't need to be solved to be real, because what is at stake here may not be who made them, but why still we feel them calling us. But what if these skulls weren't made by human hands? What if they were traces of knowledge that predates history itself? There is something deeply unsettling about crystal skulls, a perfection that defies even the arrogance of our time. When engineers at Hewlett-Packard in the 1970s analyzed the skull of Mitchell Hedges under high-precision microscopes were perplexed. The crystal had been carved against the natural axis of the quartz, something that, according to them, would cause fracture immediate, if done with rotating tools. Still, the piece was impeccable, without cracked, without fissures, with movable jaws fitted together like light gears. Experts calculated that to manually polish a single skull with sand and water, the only methods possible in ancient civilizations, would require 3 centuries of continuous work. 3 centuries. How can we explain such dedication? Or rather, such impossibility? Quartz is one of the hardest minerals on the planet. To carve it with such precision, it would be vibration and temperature control is required that not even modern tools can guarantee. Some surfaces have perfect optical curvatures. They function as lenses that refract light into colorful spirals. Scientists call this the rainbow effect internal, but the ancients called it the breath of the spirit. An engineer stated in an interview, "If it were done today, we would need laser-guided diamond. But even then, the marks would be detectable, and in this piece there is none." It was as if the crystal had shaped itself of its own accord, following a pattern invisible. The mystery was repeated in other skulls, the one at the British Museum, the one in Paris, the one in Smithsonian. They all exhibited the same technical standard, an impossible cut for the archaeological context where they were supposedly found. Some appeared to have been made from a single block without any seams. Others presented such minute anatomical details that they suggested medical or three-dimensional, something incompatible with the pre-Columbian era. For skeptics, this was proof of forgery. But for those who looked beyond the surface, this perfection seemed like the vestige of a technology forgotten or not terrestrial, one science based not on mechanical force, but on vibrational resonance, as if the material had been shaped by sound, light, or frequency, concepts that today only we begin to understand through quantum physics and sonoluminescence. Imagine an instrument capable of rearranging crystal molecules by vibration harmonic, teaching it to assume a form, not forcing it. This hypothesis seems fanciful, but the same principle is used in modern laboratories with sound ultrasonic and photonic laser. Did ancient civilizations possess some primitive or inherited form of this technology? Many alternative scholars believe that the skulls belong to an era before the flood, perhaps to Atlantis, a civilization capable of manipulating matter through the mind and of the sound. Others suggest that they are recording devices, created to store information, not written but vibrational, like the crystals used in computers. If quartz can store billions of digital bits, why not spiritual memories? But the enigma goes beyond technique. Some researchers claim that skulls behave anomalously, report subtle temperature changes, electromagnetic pulses, and optical effects that occur only during certain lunar periods or when placed close to each other, as if they communicated. Coincidence? Or evidence that they form a network, a kind of crystalline system of collective consciousness? Quartz is sensitive to human intention. Experiments show that emotions and thoughts can alter vibration patterns in water crystals and minerals. If the crystal responds to the mind, so perhaps skulls respond to the soul. Perhaps they are mirrors of the human field, amplifying what is within us: fear, faith, remembrance. Science tries to measure, spirituality tries to feel, but between the two there is emptiness, silence of the inexplicable, and in that space, mystery lives. If something inside you is awakening, stay until the end, because what comes next isn't just about stone and crystal. It's about what vibrates through behind everything we call real. In every crystal skull there is the echo of an ancient voice, a voice that may not come from only from Earth. Legends say that they do not belong to a single culture, but to a time before recorded memory, a forgotten cycle of humanity. In Mayan, Egyptian, and even myths Tibetans, there is always the same idea. Luminous beings descended from the heavens, taught the men measuring time, cultivating the land, talking to the stars, and before they leave, they left something as a testimony: the skulls of wisdom. The Mayans called them the 13 mirrors of creation. They said they were kept in underground temples, one in every corner of the world, until the moment when the humanity would once again deserve the knowledge that sleeps within them. According to his prophecies, when the 13 skulls come together again, the earth will remember who it is. It was a physical event, but a vibrational one, a convergence of consciousness between the sky, man, and crystal. Interestingly, similar versions appear in other traditions. The Egyptians spoke of the heads of light, sacred artifacts guarded by priests of Thoth, the god of wisdom. In the East, ancient texts mention jade skulls that sing, used in initiation rituals. Would it be a coincidence that distant civilizations shared the same symbol, the translucent head that contains the light of the mind? Some researchers believe that these convergences point to a matrix-lost civilization, a common source prior to known history. They call her Atlantis, Lemuria, or Mu, civilizations that would have mastered the power of sound, geometry, and energetic crystallization. According to this view, crystals were used not as adornments, but as conductors of planetary memory, living records of wisdom universal. In sacred geology, crystal is considered the stuff of remembrance. He grows ordered, atom by atom, as if the universe wrote a code within it. So, when ancient cultures sculpted him into human form, they were recognizing that mind and stone follow the same pattern. Both are instruments of memory. In some caves in Central America, archaeologists have found altars entirely covered in quartz dust, as if rituals had been performed to transfer energetic information between the human body and the crystal. These ceremonies represented the agreement between worlds, The mineral absorbed what the flesh forgot. Other scholars, such as contemporary spiritual anthropologists, believe that skulls were meditation devices designed to amplify consciousness collective. Around them, groups gathered, chanted sounds, and entered into altered perception. The crystal served as a catalyst, a bridge between the visible and the invisible. Even though these rituals cannot be proven, there is a symbolic coherence that spans millennia. The skull is the temple of the mind, and the crystal, the substance of light. When both come together, we have a reminder that consciousness is shaped matter for the soul. Skulls could just be artifacts, or they could be the keys to knowledge ancient, designed to awaken when humans remember that they are also energy. Perhaps they are not relics of extinct peoples, but traces of a humanity before the wow, a version of ourselves that knew how to listen to the earth before forgetting it. What if the skulls are fragments of a memory of the earth before humanity? What if each of them is an access point, not to a dead past, but to a living field of planetary remembrance? There is a question that inevitably arises when the mystery goes beyond what time can you explain. What if the crystal skulls are not human? For centuries, archaeology has tried to fit these pieces into the puzzle of history, but perhaps the enigma belongs to another board, the cosmic one. Alternative researchers such as Erich von Däniken and Zecharia Sitchin defended the idea that, in remote ages, visitors from other worlds were among us. They would be the same gods described in Sumerian tablets, Mayan legends, and scriptures, Hindus, beings who descended from the heavens in luminous ships and brought with them advanced knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and energetic vibration. These instructors would have left marks everywhere: pyramids aligned with constellations, energy lines on Earth, temples that resonate at precise frequencies, and perhaps the crystal skulls. According to this hypothesis, skulls would not be mere artifacts, but devices of record, encoded in a crystalline structure by a technology based on light and sound. Quartz, when shaped and energized, could store data, holographic memories, images, vibrations, the same way we store information on silicon chips today. This would explain why skulls seem to respond to mental stimuli, emotions, and why some exhibit inexplicable phenomena of inner light and pulsation electromagnetic. In 1996, a Canadian physicist named Marcel Vogel, a former IBM researcher, conducted experiments with quartz crystals and demonstrated that thoughts, intentional vibrations could change their vibrational patterns. He described the crystal as a being I live in a state of rest. Vogel believed that skulls were antennas designed to capture and amplify fields of consciousness, an interface between the human mind and the universal field of information. In his words, when you look inside a crystal skull, it gives you back your own thought in the form of light. The extraterrestrial hypothesis sees in them the trace of a science that surpasses our own. Linear understanding, a spiritual technology in which consciousness and matter are not opposites but complements. If the old gods or teachers really existed, they could have left these skulls as genetic codes of memory, crystalline seeds destined to reactivate the link between the human and the cosmic. Skeptics argue that none of this is just projection, the human desire to find sense where there is only coincidence. But interestingly, the advancement of quantum physics begins to touch the same boundaries that mystical traditions have always suggested. Today we know that consciousness can influence the behavior of particles subatomic, that light behaves like a wave and a particle at the same time, that the observer modifies the experiment just by being present. If reality is shaped by perception, perhaps the crystal, with its geometric order perfect, be the material mirror of this principle. And then, what once seemed like fantasy becomes a scientific possibility disguised as myth. Perhaps the skulls are not visitors from space, but emitters of a consciousness universal that only uses the crystal as a translator. Or perhaps they are, in fact, gifts left by intelligences from another plane, entrusting the man the challenge of remembering what it means to create with light. The real question is not whether they came from the stars, but whether we can still recognize them within us. Because, if the universe is a mirror, looking at a crystal, skull is looking at the cosmos itself reflected in human form. What if the secret of the skulls is not from the outside, but from within us? If the universe speaks in vibration, The crystal is its purest language. It doesn't shout, it doesn't impose, it just resonates. Each quartz molecule vibrates in a pattern stable, emitting constant frequency, as if time itself had found a place there, rest point. And it is in this vibrant silence that the mystery lies. The crystal seems understand what man feels even when man does not understand what he is looking for. Modern science already knows the power of quartz. He is the one who marks the seconds in our watches, amplifies signals on radios, records data on microchips. Its molecular structure air is a precision code, capable of storing and reproducing information with almost infinite. But spiritual traditions have always seen in him something more, a mirror of the soul. When cut in the shape of a skull, it becomes a living metaphor of the human mind, transparent, complex, and capable of reflecting both light and shadow. Mystics claim that each skull vibrates at a unique frequency, as if it were a mineral heart. When someone approaches, the crystal's field aligns with the crystal's field. Observer, and a subtle exchange of information takes place. Some describe visions, others they feel peace, others cry without understanding why. It's as if the crystal remembers for us what that we forgot. Perhaps this is their language, not words, but emotional resonance. Experiments with high-frequency sounds have shown that quartz crystals react to harmonic vibrations, creating geometric patterns that resemble mandalas. The sound becomes form, and form returns sound, a dialogue between energy and matter. In certain shamanic cultures, the crystal is believed to sing when placed in the presence of inner purity. In modern physics, we know that quartz is piezoelectric, transforms pressure into electrical current and current into vibration. What we call magic may just be consciousness-sensitive physics. There are those who say that crystal skulls function as frequency translators between plans, that in them, thought becomes light, and light, message. This would explain why so many people, when meditating with a skull, report hearing subtle sounds, seeing colors, or feeling energy pulses. It's as if the crystal were an antenna tuned to capture something that the rational mind has yet to detect, didn't learn to decipher. But perhaps it's not about deciphering, but about remembering. The crystal, unlike us, does not forget. It maintains its structure for millions of years. It doesn't get corrupted, it doesn't get sick, it doesn't age. It is matter in a state of fidelity. That is why so many traditions associate it with the memory of the earth, a living record of what it has already done. It was. If each human being carries within them a spark of the cosmos, the crystal is the mirror which proves this. Origin. He reminds us that we are made of the same stardust, organized by the same primordial sound. Many say that, in front of a crystal skull, the sensation is of being observed. Perhaps it is not she who looks at us, but the universe through her, because the crystal doesn't speak, it remembers. And when he remembers, he awakens in us what has not yet died, the desire to return to listen to the music that sustains all things. Perhaps in the end, the language of the crystal is silence, the same silence that exists between one thought and another, between one beat and the next. And it is in this interval that the soul recognizes that it is also made of light. Perhaps the true mystery of crystal skulls lies not in what they are, but in what awaken. They force us to look beyond the surface, into time, memory, and of ourselves, as if they were mirrors that do not reflect faces, but consciousnesses. Science seeks data, faith seeks meaning, and the crystal remains between the two, remembering that the universe does not separate what man insists on sharing, because at the heart of the mystery, there is no conflict between the visible and the invisible. There is only vibration, changing shape. Perhaps the skulls were created by human hands with patience and devotion impossible to understand. Or perhaps they are fragments of a cosmic wisdom, left as a seed for when we were ready to listen again. But regardless of the origin, the effect is the same. They make us remember. Remember that matter is alive, that consciousness is energy, that the mystery doesn't have to be explained to be true. In a world that measures everything in numbers, the crystal continues to teach us to measure by vibration. And when we approach him in silence, something changes. Time slows down. The look, if makes it deeper, the thought dissolves. It's as if the crystal returned us to the point of origin, that instant when everything was just light at rest. If this journey resonates with you, perhaps it's no coincidence. Maybe crystal skulls didn't cross millennia just to be looked at, but to be remembered. Perhaps each of them is a reminder that the history of humanity is still being written, not in stone, but in vibration. After all, when we look at a crystal, what do we see? An object? An old technology? Or a reflection of what we could be if we remembered our own light? The secret may not be hidden in the caves or the stars, but in the space between one thought and the other, where silence touches the soul. If this message touched something for you, subscribe and follow us. Your soul may be remembering the path, and perhaps, at the end of it all, we will realize that the universe has always been talking to us. He just chose to speak through what is transparent, because light never needed words to be understood. And if what we love at the end is just the beginning of a memory that the soul has not yet forgot,